Today we have with us renowned pianist Shani Diluka. Thank you for joining us today. It's a pleasure to have you despite your very busy schedule. But to get on with it, our first question to you. What drew you to the piano and how did your passion for music develop?
So my both parents are Sri Lankan, but I was born in Monaco in Monte Carlo, and that is where I started music. And it was a bit of like a fairy tale, I would say, because my parents were not into classical music, Western classical music. And the Princess Grace Kelly, when she arrived to Monaco, Monte Carlo, she decided to put again culture in the center of the society. So she organized in all the little kindergarten in Monaco, little children, to have this test to find out who are the talented children. And the test were like for memory and just repeating melodies and, rhythm. And I got actually chosen this very specific program. Only 10 children were chosen. And that's how I started. When this test was made, I was 5 years old. And I started music when I was 6. So actually, I literally started to read books as the same time as I was reading music. So it became my own language.
You were discovered, like you said, at a very young age. How did that shape your life?
I think if for any child who meets arts, specifically music, it's a plus for the whole life. When you are a child at 6 or 7 years, when you do normal schooling, but 2 afternoons of classical music, that was my special program. Of course, it was like 8 hours of classical music every week. That makes you work and have discipline. It's like dances, ballet dances. You work technique, but also it makes your imagination grow. It brings also a kind of concentration, which for the whole life will help you for the studies. Actually, most of my friends didn't become musicians in this specific program, but they became very famous lawyers or doctors, and they did really wonderful careers, because I think this base, it's proved actually today scientifically that this base of doing music and normal studies brings you a wider connection with your brain and brings you also more a better way to organize your life and your thinking. So I guess that shaped my way of thinking, and of course of connecting with the invisible world, because music is all about what is not visible. It's about emotion, it's about colors, about landscapes, about historical moments. And you, as a child and as an adult, is always bringing your imagination to a certain activity, which gives you a connection with everything, with the beauty. Actually, it's connect you with beauty.
Is there a specific practice routine or exercise and technique you follow to maintain or, say, enhance your skills?
I would say that for anything, there's no secret. Work is the most important. I would even say that 90% is the work and 10% is the talent. In a way, when you have a talent or some, I would say you're lucky enough to have your gift developed by a program like I did. I was so lucky to receive this education. That's not enough, and you need to work very hard. Like a sportsman, every day, actually, you need to keep on your technical skills. But also, when I was saying about imagination, it's also experimenting, it's reading books, is going to museums, to exhibitions, is meeting people, and every story that I meet and I prospect brings me inspiration for my work. So my routine would say maybe 4 or 5 hours of working my piano, scales, pieces. There are so many for the piano, from Mozart to Bach to Chopin to romantic music or modern music. And then, of course, reading and exploring why at that moment the composer composed, why Mozart composed that music, why Chopin, and to know about their lives and all what the feelings are behind the notes. Because at the end, what we are playing, it's actually a kind of a code, but we have to really describe what is behind the notes, which means sometimes just memories, all human feelings, and what the composer said, and that's also a big part of the work.
How do you manage performance anxiety or say nervousness before concerts or any important event?
So of course it's always quite demanding to come on stage, and when you're 2,000 people waiting for you and coming especially for you, and we want to be high today expectation. Sometimes it's live radio, so it could be on air for 5 million people listening. I was very often broadcasted by the European broadcast. So at the same time in many countries. Recently it was for the BBC, and then it's all then broadcasted in Australia. So we don't realize how much there's pressure when we play, and especially classical music notes are written, so every note people would know what is the music. It's not like improvisation, which is I also respect, by the way. But I feel that to forget about all this pressure and about the fact that people listen to you, it's to become music. It's to just forget about where we are. Once you get into the music, it's like getting to another dimension. It's like when you are in a dream in the night. When you dream, you don't know where you are, and you don't know who you are. And for me, playing is becoming like a dream, and that's a state of like meditation. When you do really deep meditation, you don't know anymore. You are just floating, and you are in a very intense, I would say, disponibility that you are receiving the world. And I feel that I receive the music, and music is becoming me. And I'm just trying humbly to give the best of what is written on these great pieces, and to share this emotion with the public. And I feel very often that the public also gives back with the silence and the energy that they are with me in this sharing this moment. That's also a part of the magic of the concert, of the live concert, is that the public it's like an exchange, and then we forget all about the fear, and then we are in the music.
What ritual do you swear by before coming in front of an audience or before you take the stage?
So, as I was saying, to become in this state of trance, of meditation, of course the body is the first phase. So breathing and connecting the body, warming up, of course, because the body has to be alive. Also, like a pilot in a plane, you can see the music like a map. So I see the whole piece like a map that is very clear for me, for the memory. And then the final step would say to imagine. For very often I read poetry before I come on stage, because I think poetry and music are very close. It's this dimension where we cannot explain things. Poetry is becoming puts you in a state of hyper sensitivity, and I'm trying to get to this state of mind and body before I come on stage. And poetry is also a way for me to enter this other dimension.
What has been the most challenging performance to date?
So I would say that every performance is important for me. When I play for instance, I play often, I go to prison to play for prisoners, and since 7 years, and for me it's very important when I play for them, because I know they have been of course, to jail because of the purpose, and I believe in justice. But they have never contact with, I would say, their imagination and expressing feelings. And we have been working together. While I'm playing Schubert or Beethoven, they are writing about their lives, about their regrets, their mistakes, and about their hopes. And this is very unique because suddenly they open their hearts and they just say what's coming to their mind thanks to the music. And it was such a powerful moment that at the end we did a show in the prison for the other prisoners and the families of the prisoners, and they were so moved. And the director of the prison said that was so unique because they said things they would never say thanks to music. And they didn't know anything about classical music. It just opened their soul. And at the end, the government asked them to come and do it on stage. So they came from jail to the stage to tell their own story, the text, while I was playing. And the show was such a success. It was 2,000 people, a standing ovation. And of course, in the night, all around the stage, the police was around the stage, security with security. And then in the night they came back to jail, but they were different people. And I saw how much music can change people and can put them into a human condition. They become human again. And that's something I'm very convinced about. So this is a very transforming experience for me. And of course, then I have other challenging concerts, like playing in Tokyo, in Japan, for 5,000 people. That was also a big challenge, and you feel so small on stage with all this audience. But Japanese people have such a great audience, and maybe one of the best in the world. So they always give back. So this is all different kind of experience, and every moment is very different and very special. It's never the same.
You must have a bias when it comes to music. So what is your all-time favorite piece of music to play?
So I would say that music is always linked to emotions. So I would say about moods or moments of my life. When I was a teenager, I loved Schumann, and then when I was very in love or romantic, I loved Chopin. I still love Chopin. It's very deep emotion. But I would say that maybe for me the greatest is Beethoven, as Beethoven had this challenge to balance passion and reason. In his music, you find this passionate and this maybe sometimes this anger, because he was deaf, he could not hear music anymore, and that he needed to find a way to express his music without hearing his own music. So it was a big challenge, but with his genius, he actually changed his music into a very different way of playing the piano. From that time, it became so modern, the piano became so modern thanks to him. And at the same time, he's always fighting about his destiny, and he was so despaired at what time he wanted to end his life, because as a musician, how is it possible not to hear any more music? But he kept on composing all his life, half of his life without hearing, because he knew music was something which made people better and put people together. And this spirit, when I play Beethoven, is such a great feeling, because you feel the struggle, but you feel hope together. And I think it's so human, because any human being is struggling in life and has a drama. And he gives this wonderful lesson that suffering becomes beauty and becomes a strength. So every time I play his music, I feel very deeply moved, and I feel the power on the people.
Have there been any funny or unexpected moments during live performances?
I have to think. I'm sure there have been many. Playing is such an intense moment that people would not interrupt. But once I got a letter after a big performance in this very famous festival in south of France. It's the biggest piano festival called La Roque d'Anteron. And I got this letter, and this lady said, I was listening to your concert, and for the first time, my baby moved in my stomach. And she said, I will never forget which piece it was. It was a Mendelssohn piece. So I was very touched. And then 3 years later, a little baby came on stage with a little bouquet. And it was this little baby who came to listen to my concert. And when I finished the concert, he came on stage with an organizer who helped him to come, because he was so tiny, to give a bouquet. And then the mother told me, he's the one who moved for the first time while you were playing. So that's very touching. And since then, now I think he's around 15 years now. And since then, almost every year they try to come to one of my concerts in France.
If you could maybe transport yourself to any historical period or say musical era to witness a piano performance, which one would you choose?
So I think I was talking about Beethoven, who went through all these revolutions, but maybe 19th century is the most interesting period that Romanticism came to the piano, with Chopin, Schumann, Liszt. that's where for the first time the emotions and the personal part is becoming important into music. And I would have loved to meet all these great composers, and they were great pianists playing. It was actually the start of the piano recitals. It really started quite late. Before were more with orchestras, but that time period was also connecting with literature. All these people like Chopin, they were connecting with poets, with painters, and I would have loved to just share this conversation, which I think brings the richness of art, and it's, they're trying to explain what's happening in humanity. I believe that music or arts is like a mirror of what's happening in everyday life and in history. And 19th century was a very important historical period because it was in France after the revolution, then the human rights and that everybody was equal. That was a big value which you feel also in the music.
Do you have any non-musical hobbies or interests?
I have many interests. I love actually, I'm very curious since I'm a kid. And when I come to Sri Lanka, for instance, I love to go to nature. For me, Sri Lanka is so connected to essential things. I was lucky that my family took me very young to these beautiful places like Yala or the mountains in Nuwara and to see the birds here at the sanctuary. It's a sanctuary for birds. So nature is one of my passion. I really feel even that music is connected to nature. I was talking about Beethoven or Schubert. He was telling that the only moment where he was feeling good was when he was in the forest. So nature is one of my needed moments to go. Like yesterday night, I went to Mount Lavinia. I had only half an hour just to go and see the sea and listen to the sound of the ocean. Then I love reading. Actually, I write poetry since I'm a teenager. So this is also my secret passion. But now already 2 books were edited, and I received a prize I was in the prize list of the French Academy, which is very, very famous. So writing poetry is also part of my life. So every time I'm in the plane or in jet lag in the hotels, if I don't sleep, I write poetry. It also, connects with my music. And then I love also cinema and films. I watch a lot of, these old movies from Visconti, from Hitchcock, and all these great French cinema is very interesting, like Godard and Truffaut, and it's also for the imagination moments which I need when I'm in the plane. I love watching movies in the plane, so this is also part of my life. All what is cultural actually is, and of course the final thing which I love is eating. I love eating and I love wine. This is part of being alive. And every places I travel to, I'm always trying to find the best place, or to find the right cook, the best cook. Sometimes it can be in Italy, where there's a little place with grandmothers and they cook the best pasta in the world, and I meet the grandmothers, and this kind of experience is also great. And Sri Lankan food is the best, I think.
What is your favorite dish?
Oh, I love, of course, chicken curry. I love wambatu, brinjal. I love batlapang. I love so many things. I love pittu. I love tose. So every night when I come to Sri Lanka, I'm asking for a menu, and my family is trying to make the best that I could eat. I love paratha, and biryani. So many things. What I love, especially in Sri Lanka, because I've been performing a lot in India, for instance, and Indian food is very good. But what I really love in Sri Lankan food is the vegetables. And there's so many kinds of vegetables, like karavila, gotukala. I never find this, never ever anywhere else. And this richness with all these vegetables, it's so great, and the taste is so interesting. So this is also one of my big pleasure to have food here in Sri Lanka.
Okay, I think wraps up our interview. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you.
And everyone at LMD wishes you all the very best.
Thank you so much for the interview.
Thank you.